Dear all, my name is Dimitrina Papagalska and I'm a Chief Assistant Professor at the University of National and World Economy. The topic of my paper that I'm here to present is knowledge management and its importance in students' education. The concept about knowledge management is not new and it began in the 1990s when Tom Davenport defined it as the process of capturing, distributing, and effectively using knowledge. Although the definition undergoes changes during the years, I found that one to be still up to date in 21st century. It is one sentence, however, capturing each phase that is of great importance for the successful knowledge management strategy. Capture, distribute, and effectively use. Each person, no matter of his or her professional field, is bearer of specific knowledge. Part of it is gathered during their preparation for their profession, including education, additional trainings, lectures, professional literature, etc., and the other part is gained by experience. Organizational knowledge can have different manifestations and forms, from the organization of the workflow and documentation to the databases with important information for organization, people with specific expertise, trade secrets, and others, each of which could bring some added value to the organization and thus contribute to its competitiveness. The sources of organizational knowledge can be all its employees, regardless of their place in the organizational hierarchy, external experts and consultants with whom the organization works, partners and suppliers, as well as clients of the organization. To what extent an organization will maximize the effect of the knowledge it possesses or can gather depends on whether and what knowledge management strategy it chooses to implement. In long term, this usually means that the organization will implement the knowledge management strategy and its principles in the overall politics and other procedures. On the other hand, this will contribute to the positive and innovative organizational image, and other ones may reach its management for sharing its good practices and means of successfully implementing knowledge management strategy. And as experts in intellectual property, our students know that positive image is something that can contribute to brand values and thus to the intellectual property assets of the organization. Stages of the knowledge management, I have shown on the slide several of them. Identification of the knowledge in the organization, assessment of the importance and the role of identified knowledge for the competitiveness of the organization, systematization and structuring of knowledge, preservation and protection of knowledge, use of knowledge, knowledge transfer, upgrading and updating already available organizational knowledge, and generating knowledge. Following those stages, I will direct your attention on some principles that apply. First, the above actions should be performed in a correlation depending on the knowledge management strategy chosen by the organization. Without a clear strategy, it is possible that there will be a gap between the importance of the identified knowledge for the competitiveness of the organization, for example, and the mechanisms that have been applied to protect. Second, identification of knowledge management involves an in-depth understanding of the organization's mission, vision, short-term and long-term goals, and how the organization achieves them. The specific knowledge that contributes to this may already be identified, described, and systematized for the purposes of its preservation, protection, and use, but may also be focused on and held by specific people in the team, which would endanger the organization in the event of withdrawal of these people. Third, when the identified knowledge meets the legal requirements for this, it can be protected as an object of intellectual property, including such as trade secret, industrial design, invention, copyright objects, and so on. When knowledge is a factor of competitiveness, its protection as an object of intellectual property is recommended. Fourth, in addition to the efforts to manage existing organizational knowledge, it is recommended that the organization makes efforts to update and upgrade it. One of the key factors in organizational knowledge management is the concept of the so-called lessons learned, for which Jeff Dowton shares Most companies have institutionalized this process, but even when lessons are correctly identified, documented, and communicated, they often get lost in some sort of lessons learned database, as in a black hole. End of citation. This paradox must be avoided at any cost in order not to repeat already made mistakes again, which will inevitably prevent the organization to learn from its own experience. Fifth, it is important to remember that knowledge can be gathered not only from the inner processes and organization staff, but from other stakeholders as well. This may be the clients of the organization, partners, distributors, and others. When building the knowledge management strategy, it is important to also set the so-called main points of interaction, by which important feedback may be gathered that can help in optimizing the organization processes and with that the organizational knowledge. Partly this relates to the principles of human-centered design that should be considered in the processes of setting the organizational knowledge management strategy. These principles concern both the staff of the organization and the other stakeholders. Finally, consider that not all knowledge can be documented and shared by files. It is advisable to think of means to encourage constant knowledge sharing by different forms, for example, by trainings, workshop presentations, mentorship, coaching, and so on. These means may serve as an accelerator not only for building and sustaining an organizational culture for sharing knowledge, but for its constant updating, which should also always be remembered as a necessary step for supporting the competitive advantages of the organization. And instead of a conclusion, I would like to read you a part of the book of Basher and Ronan, who wants to justify knowledge management as a tool to increase the intangible asset of intellectual capital, which in turn ensures the tangible assets of future financial success. And that can be achieved by a knowledge management strategy that takes into account every single organizational specifics, including know-how, and sets the correct principles for gathering, systematizing, upgrading, sharing, transferring, and using knowledge in the organization and outside the organization through relevant stakeholders. Students that go through a course for knowledge management in the organization will acquire lots of competitive skills for their working experience after graduation. Moreover, this discipline may be looked at as a means for understanding the importance and applicability of intellectual property system for creating knowledge, as well as for its protection as intellectual property objects. Once the strategy is set and put into practice, the organization must not stop updating and upgrading it, learning from gathered experience and continuing to implement it. Knowledge management strategy is a continuous and never-ending process. And that's what organizations strive for. Students understanding those processes and knowing how to manage them be very valuable members in the organizational teams. Thank you very much for your attention.